base rate has got to be, it's got to be uncomfortably low.
Right.
It has to be uncomfortable. It has to be low enough that it's going to starve the guys out you don't want around.
What's up, Joel?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Good. Hey, we got a good guest on here today.
I know. I see that. Who is that guest? Who's that guy?
The man of the hour, Bo McKenzie.
Yay!
Bo McKenzie, the man of the hour. What's going on, Bo?
You said it was a half hour, so it's the man of the half hour, right?
Oh yeah, man of the half hour. Sorry,
I'm not quite to the level of full hour.
dude. An hour is a long time to talk.
Hour is a long time to talk.
For sure.
Yeah. So, Bo, you own Full Speed Plumbing in, I don't even know where to say you are, but you're in what?
Western Washington. We kind of cover a lot of the upper 2/3 of the I-5 corridor in Washington State. We cover pretty much everything from just south of Olympia all the way to the Canadian border, which is probably a 3.5 hour drive top to bottom.
Nice. Wow. So that's a big area.
Pretty big, yeah.
Pretty huge. So when you're like, how does that work when you're, I know you have 3 locations, and I've wondered this about your business for a while, and I've never asked you.
Okay.
But how does that work for like guys going to the parts stores? Do you stock parts at your shop? Do they go to the parts store when they need stuff? How do you work that?
Question. So we stay pretty lean on our shops. I'm not big into carrying a lot of inventory. I've been bid on that before, where you end up carrying stuff that goes obsolete, and then you got $20,000 or something that is good for nothing, but saving until somebody needs a part off it, or if it's brass, take it to the scrapyard. But I have in my career dumped probably near $100,000 of stuff in the dump because I couldn't find use for it. So so what we do is we stay real lean, even in our shops. I'm pretty particular in our shops. We carry 1 to 2 trucks worth of inventory in any one of our shops. And then what I've done beyond that is that we actually have a string of mini storage units is what we've actually gotten, that I have set up with shelves exactly like I have our trucks set up. And so the guys can find stuff really easily because they're in the exact same places. And then instead of having shop boys or whatever the guys order out, they take back and they're supposed to restock. And that works pretty well for the most part. Sometimes you got to crack down on a guy for not doing it, but for the most part they do pretty well with it.
So they go to the Connex, they pull parts out, and then they're responsible for restocking it.
Yeah, so what our guys do is they'll actually order from the supply house with a PO number of their truck or their truck/shop. If it's their truck/shop, then it's going to come in a box with that shop on it, and they know that they need to get it back into the shop they took it out of. Our guys make an order at the end of every day. Then that way they get a box usually middle of the next day at the shop that they work out of. They'll get a box and they open it like Christmas morning and restock their truck. Yeah.
Nice.
We try to keep as much small as possible. So we keep it on the guys. Sure. The guys control their own trucks. That truck, and now our trucks are a little different than what a lot of guys are going to run. I mean, we run 14-foot box trucks, and our shops are set up. So we set them up for what we call a 93 to 97% today and right now. That's how we word it. So our trucks literally have an electric water heater, a gas water heater, a tankless water heater. They've got a budget and a premium toilet. They've got two budget lav faucets, 2 premium lav faucets, a budget kitchen faucet, as well as a premium kitchen faucet. They have all the pieces and parts. My guys can usually do a repipe out of their truck. They're carrying enough stuff. So we run our shop, our trucks kind of are our shops is how we do it. And then our guy is responsible to maintain and manage his own shop. So we kind of keep that real small. Puts a lot more on the guys, but we compensate our guys pretty heavily too. So if they're performing well, then it pays off to them. So they kind of, it's all in their control, but it's also lots expected of them. And with that comes with great expectation, great reward. They come hand in hand, right?
So that kind of points to like the beauty of like niching down, because I know a lot of people want to do plumbing and heating, which I do mainly because I'm in a tiny little market and heating is a huge deal. But like I know I even have clients, they're in a big market and they're trying to do plumbing and heating. I'm like, dude, just do one or the other. Like, make up your mind already. Because like you said, you can store all that stuff on your truck. You can have
Yep.
faucets, you can have all the shower valves, you can have the water heaters, you can
Mhm.
have the toilets. And then you can offer those services cheaper than if you didn't, right?
Yeah.
And still make your profit margins.
Yep.
Is that kind of the thought behind that?
Yeah. Again, it comes down to simplicity. Just keeping it real simple. Simple is scalable. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Is you can just keep repeating and repeating simplicity. The beauty of it actually comes down to the fact that if you do it right and market correctly, you can hire guys wherever you get an uptick in call volume. So that's kind of how we've expanded out the way that we have. If I start getting call volume over here, we kind of toy with our marketing. You and I have played together on some of it. We kind of toy with our marketing a little bit. If I get an uptick in an area, so now I'm making a guy drive an hour every day over to this, or every other day, that tells me that I probably need to get a presence there. And instead of renting a shop there or whatever, we start doing recruiting missions up there. And I try to find a guy up there. Now, if I put a truck, which our trucks are billboards, so if I put a truck in a neighborhood in a guy's driveway and it's driving in and out of that neighborhood, we see a second uptick then at that point. And then you start actually putting intentional marketing in that area and you see another uptick.
So what point in time would you, like, once you get a guy there, you've got an uptick, you've got a truck there.
Mm-hmm.
At what point in time would you invest in like a shop or something, like actual physical presence there?
Usually if I can support 3 to 4 guys out of an area, I'm looking to go physical presence. Now we did start one the other way where we actually did the shop and then I started pushing it, and it really hasn't worked anywhere near as well as getting the workflow and then spreading.
Sure.
That's cool. That's cool to think about because you're in such a big area that you kind of have to do that.
Well, the thing about Seattle Metro, I hate saying Seattle Metro because then people think that I'm from Seattle, and nobody wants to say they're from Seattle.
Right.
But people around the U.S. and around the world, I have to say I'm from Seattle, or else they have no idea what I'm talking about. But that Seattle Metro area is not. It's not like a lot of areas where it kind of spread out like this, because we have the Puget Sound on one side and then we have the mountains on the other.
Right.
So what ended up happening is that Seattle Metro goes real long and skinny. I mean, it's. I'd be willing to bet that within the next 10 years, the Seattle Metro will literally go from the Canadian border to the Oregon border. There's a break right now just south of Chehalis that runs down to Longview. But it used to be that it ran down to Longview and then there was another break to Portland. There's no break to Portland anymore.
That's crazy.
From Longview to Portland is almost completely a metro area all the way through now. There's a few little spots, but almost completely. I mean, you think about it, what's going to happen is the Portland Metro and the Portland Metros and Seattle Metros are actually going to meet. It's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
At this time. So what ends up happening, because it doesn't go out like this, I can't really have which causes some issues in marketing, to be honest with you. I can't really have a hot spot and then just kind of ping out from there. Because like my house, for instance, when we had the shop actually in the shop in my backyard back in the day, when we had that, if I marketed on something that was in radius in my area, it would always want to try to put Squim in the mix. Squim's a town that's out on the peninsula. Squim is 16 miles as the crow flies from me. 16 miles is it. But if I were to drive to Squim, it'd take me 3.5 hours.
Yeah, you got to hop on a ferry, don't you?
You do have to hop on a ferry. Yeah. And so it's 3.5 hours if I catch ferries right, by the way. I could probably push that out even further in reality. So, so then you can't really do radius, so you have to play a little bit different with it. But that's what happened. It ended up long. And so instead of building one big shop, we really learned that keeping real simple, tight, small groups and scattering up and down made a ton more sense for our operations.
Right. Yeah. So I want to go back to your little mini parts store idea, because like, where do you put those? Like, how do you find a place to put them?
Storage units.
So they're just like, you just go to get a storage unit and fill it up with stuff.
I get 8x14 storage units. There's mini storage units all over the place in this country. And if you negotiate, you can get them pretty cheap. Oh, and by the way, if you pay attention, you'll find that most of them are actually owned by groups right? So there are groups that actually own them. So instead of negotiating on one of them, you can negotiate on 4 of them. If you get them half hour to 45 minutes apart, and then you place those outright, now all of a sudden, you get a couple water heaters sitting in there. You get some basic stock sitting in there. You've opened it up to where you've allowed yourself to be able to spread a lot broader. But again,
Sure.
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we're going to set those shelves up exactly like our trucks are, so that it's real simple, real lean, 1 to 2 trucks worth of inventory tops.
And so all of them have the same stuff, so everybody knows what's in there too. So then you don't have to track anything, right?
Yeah, all of our trucks are loaded identically. All of our shops are loaded exactly like our trucks.
Gotcha. That sounds cool. Because what I run into is, we do a lot of heating, and it probably takes up the most of our truck stock. So the plumbing into things really just gets left behind. So our cost to do plumbing is really expensive, because if we need a faucet, we're going to the store to get it.
Oh,
If we need a water heater, we're going to the store to get it. Because we need so much heating stuff. Like 75% of our stuff is heating, and I should probably heat my own device and just stick to one or the other. Like, don't do plumbing and just do heating. I'd probably be better off.
It'd be either that or divide 2 ways and just run 2 separate things altogether.
Yeah, and we kind of we do that with our trucks. So we've got 2 guys that are basically the plumbers, and they take the majority of the plumbing calls. But yeah, I guess we just haven't figured out a good way to do that. But I like your storage unit idea. That's a good one. Yeah.
No, it works really well. I mean, I imagine up there in Alaska, they have storage units all over the place, just like we have here.
They do. Our just we're in Fairbanks, and it's so small. It's a 5-minute drive to the parts store.
Yep.
Pretty much no matter where you are. So
okay.
we may as well just go to the parts store. So usually my guys, they can usually handle probably 90% of the calls off of their truck. And then if not, they run to the parts store.
Yeah.
And they usually end up restocking. I tell them, just start your day at the parts store, restock from the day before, and you're good. And they all know if they bring anything back to the shop, I'm going to throw it away because I hate stuff in my shop.
So what we do is we have just and again, all about simplicity. We have a whiteboard on the back of every truck. So as the guys take things off their truck, they whiteboard it on, or they just write on the whiteboard. And then at the end of the day, they're expected to call in an order with the PO of their parts, or PO of their truck. I mean.
And then does the parts store deliver that to your shop location?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep. They'll just request whatever shop that they're dispatched out of. That's their home base, right? It'll go to there. We can even the supply houses even know where our storage units are, so we can do things like, hey, drop it off here. But we're a lot more spread out. I mean, 5 minutes. You say 5 minutes to a supply house, man. I'd kill for that sometimes. I mean, if you're out in some of our areas, you'll be 45 minutes to the supply house, and so 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back, and then supply houses and plumbers, they're going to be there for an hour and a half. So we've just basically burnt a half day. It's gone.
And so when you run into those situations like that, do you train your guys to bill that time to the customer? Like, hey, I know I got to go to the parts store, so I'm going to add this time into my estimate.
Yes.
And sell it with the time in.
Yeah. And those are pretty minimal. I mean, they really are pretty minimal just because of how we load the trucks. Again, 93 to 97% today and right now. So, I mean, you're talking about a 3 to 7%, thing that'll happen. I mean, it's not, the occurrences are so small. It's just.
Right. To where if you did lose an hour and a half, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. It's not going to kill you.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's happening once a month, maybe. I mean, it's not a common occurrence. And if you've got a guy that's happening to all the time, and by the way, this is part of the reason why I preach piece rate so much, because the guys will stop having problems with this if you pay piece rate, because they don't want to lose an hour and a half. So what will happen is they'll actually load their trucks correctly, because it means that they're not going to lose money out of their back pocket. It keeps them more profitable to their own paycheck.
Right. Yeah, and you've got to, do you mind talking about your piece rate and how you structure it?
You kidding? I geek out about my piece rate. I love my piece rate.
Well, tell us about it, because yours is a little different.
Yeah, no, I do have a little different one. So Washington State is, it's difficult labor things. It just is politically. So we have to be able to prove that we pay minimum wage. Our state probably is one of the harder states. I think California and us are probably the 2 worst in those ways as far as how our state just gives us troubles. But I figure if you can do what I'm doing in my state, you can do it anywhere. So basically what we do is we run 2 time cards on every guy. We run their actual time card. We run their performance time card. Their actual time card is figured on a lower base rate. And I could tell you the numbers. The problem when I say this, a lot of times when I talk about this to people, if I actually put the numbers out, they'll think that I'm saying they have to use those numbers. Put whatever numbers you need to put in. It doesn't matter. Just the structure, build on it. But so we run 2 time cards. We run an actual time card. We run a performance time card. And so the actual time card is a really low base rate, as close to your state's minimum wage as you feel comfortable doing. That's really what I tell people is as close to your state's minimum wage as you feel comfortable doing. So you're going to bring that down real low. And the idea is that the actual time card is really for nothing more than just keeping the state happy, because you're gonna keep record of this. So what's going to happen is you're going to have that, and then you're going to have the performance time card. The performance time card is clocked off of sold, completed, collected. So every task that we have has got a time allotment to it. So that time allotment gets, and it's built right into our job code, so it stacks up, right? So what happens is if a guy is more efficient, then he gets paid more. If he's less efficient, then he gets paid less. Just kind of what it is. So that sold, completed, collected. If they sell, complete, and collect a thing, then that gets put onto their performance time card. We post that performance time card live, by the way, in our shops. We actually have a shared file with Apple on the little Apple mini computers. Then we have a TV screen up, so the guys can see live all the time what the other guys are doing, what they're doing. We really do encourage a lot of competition with, not competition against. We're really big on that. But so they're going to see that, right? So as those add up, we get to the end of the pay period. Whichever time card is bigger at the end of the pay period, that's the one that the guy is going to get paid on. It doesn't matter which one it is. Whichever one's bigger is the one they're going to get paid on. And then the beauty of that is, because the actual time card's sitting over here, if the state decides to bust your chops about something, you're going to keep that in your records, and you're going to show, no, I paid them above minimum wage, even with the time and a half for any overtime they might have worked. Right. So, you can really easily prove it. I paid them more than what I had to.
Yeah, and that's going to be pretty tough for them to not make more than minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
Well, they'd have to be doing really bad.
Yeah, ours, for instance, our we call it pie. Right? We call it pie in-house is what we call it. Our pie on that is $90 an hour for any journeyman. So, so and then our base rate that we have is $18 an hour. If you can't in a week's time, we pay once a week. If you can't in a week's time beat that, you're pretty lousy. I mean, that's just all there is.
Yeah.
It's either that or it's a really, really dead week. But it's got to be a crazy dead week to even get below that. Guys just rarely ever end up on base rate. I mean, it's pretty rare. And a guy who does end up on base rate, especially if we have call volume and a guy ends up on base rate, I know exactly what I need to do with that guy.
Yeah. Do you find that those guys end up just leaving anyways, just because they're not making enough money?
Yeah, which is part of the beauty of it is that the thing I love about our piece rate structure is it self-regulates, right? It self-regulates on inventory. It self-regulates on efficiency. It self-regulates on the guys not wasting time. It self-regulates on the guys, the guy that clocks out for a half-hour lunch break, but basically is useless for an hour and a half. We've all had that guy. Because then he's got his gut full and he's half asleep because he went and ate, a 5-course meal at lunch. You're like, what are you doing? Of course you're going to be a slug after that. Well, it self-regulates all that, right? So it self-regulates guys showing up on time. It self-regulates. I mean, everything just self-regulates when you do it right. And that's the big thing about any pay structure. You have to understand that pay structures incentivize something. Every pay structure incentivizes something. So if you ask yourself, what does salary incentivize? Salary incentivizes availability, right? That's what it incentivizes. You're going to be available 24/7. That's why I'm paying you salary. Are you going to work 24/7? No, there are going to be times of insanity and there are going to be other times of boredom. That's what salary does, right? But I need you to be available, so I'm going to incentivize availability. That's what salary incentivizes. And then you've got commission. Commission really only incentivizes sales. And this is the reason why I'm actually not a big fan of commission, because I don't think it serves the customer very well. Quite honestly, I think
Right.
commission actually limits the service to the customer. And then you have piece rate. Piece rate, I think, done right, incentivizes true service, right? And the last thing you have is hourly. What does hourly incentivize? Either one of you want to guess?
Joel?
Taking a really short time. Is that right? Going as
No,
fast as you can?
no.
Oh, dang it. Okay,
Hourly
next time.
incentivizes being there.
Oh,
That's
right,
about
right.
all it really incentivizes.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Hourly incentivizes trip to the parts store. That's what it incentivizes.
Oh yeah. I think
Yeah.
my favorite one ever was a guy took you guys don't know the area, but a guy took and drove to Five Guys, the nearest Five Guys for lunch. He's like, I really wanted Five Guys. The problem was the nearest Five Guys was an hour away. He clocked out for the half hour that he was at Five Guys, but he drove an hour each way. My truck, my fuel, on my clock.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's back when we paid hourly. I don't get that anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just put it away. So yeah.
So is there any downsides that you see to piece rate?
The downside, the downside that really does come in is you kind of have to keep an eye on guys as far as them caring enough about the customer. So you do have to kind of watch that a little bit, because there's a matter of efficiency, but then there's kind of that cutthroat efficiency as well. And so you do have to kind of keep an eye on them that way. But how we do that, so our managers act as our dispatchers, is how we play that out. And in doing so, what our manager does is our guys only get one call. At the end of that call, they're going to get what we call our 6-point checklist. And so they're going to call into the manager. They're going to say, okay, I got that done. The manager is going to go through and debrief them essentially on it. How were the discounts put in? When were the discounts put in? Those types of things. Were there discounts put in? What were the options provided? Things like, did we get pictures? How are the notes? And so like if there aren't notes, my manager's going to be like, hey, get notes in here. Call me back. Click.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Hey, there's no pictures. Get pictures in here. Well, I already left the customer's house. Well, I guess you'll have to go back. Click. Right?
Yep.
And played right, the manager kind of holds that in. So if you play that out, you can kind of take care of those issues. And so the way it works, our guys do not get their next job dispatched to them until they have gone through the 6-point checklist successfully. If they fail the 6-point checklist, go home, get refreshed. Tomorrow, come back ready to follow the rules. Yeah. Which again, he self-regulates because he now just got cut off for whatever he would have made the rest of the day.
Right. Yep. He's no longer going to get his $90 an hour for all the hours he's sold.
Yep. So it works really well to how you have to watch that one is with your managers. Your managers have to debrief.
Yeah.
Have to make sure that it's happening. But if your managers are doing their part correctly, then your guys, that's not even so much an issue. But that is the downside, is guys becoming too efficient, and by efficient, cutting the service to the customer.
Right. So then I know people are going to ask, like, you're paying them piece rate, which kind of incentivizes them to hurry up and get in and get out, right? And so you've got the service side solved, but what do you do about callbacks? Like, how do you prevent them from, quality of work?
Quality correct. So with callbacks, there's no piece rate on callbacks. And even worse, if you happen to not be in that day, let's say you went on vacation, you get a callback while you're on vacation, then one of the other techs is going to go do it, and you owe him the pie that he required to do it.
Gotcha. So do you track it like however long it takes that guy to go fix your mistake? That's how many hours he owes the other guy?
Yeah.
I'd take a long time on that repair.
Back to hourly, right there. 5 Guys, here we come.
I don't think you would, because then when the guy gets back from vacation, he's probably going to hate your guts, and you do have to work with these people still.
Yeah, and then if I have a callback and he takes it,
he's going to take just as much.
So it's going to be more 5 Guys.
More 5 Guys. Yep, more 5 Guys.
Huh. Cool.
Yeah,
I like that. Okay. Anything else you see? Any other things you come into with piece rate?
No, not really. Well, yes, the one other thing is, because piece rate is odd to this market. I mean, piece rate's been used in the automotive industry forever, but it is new to this market. So convincing guys that it is a good pay structure is a little tricky until you get one guy who performs in it. You get one guy performing in it, especially when you're posting it up on a performance board. You get one guy performing in it, and now all of a sudden, when you're recruiting people and you show them and you explain it to them, it's actually one of my favorite recruiting tools is I'll take my recruit that I'm talking to in there. I'll show them the performance board, explain our piece rate structure, and then I'll be like, "Oh, excuse me, I got to do something in the other room," and I'll leave. I do it every time. Every time I come back, you know what they're doing? They got their calculator up on their phone and they're figuring out, and they'll start being like, "Did you really pay that guy this much?" Sure did. Are you really going to pay this guy this much this week? Yep. And so it allows them to kind of see the possibility of it. So the only other thing is the selling it to guys. And this, by the way, is the reason why I believe in a simple piece rate structure. There are a lot of people who try to use scaled piece rate. I found scaled piece rate to be basically impossible to sell people on. And
can you explain that?
I just barely understood it.
Can you explain like what a scaled piece rate is?
Okay, so a scaled piece rate would be if you sell this many hours, you make this much per hour on those hours that you sold completed collected. Now, so let's say you're gonna get paid $25 an hour for anything under 20 hours that you sell. If you sell 30 hours, then we're gonna bump you up to 45. But if you sell 40, then we'll bump you up to the full 90. That would be a scaled.
Gotcha.
Which is great. It actually really is. In a lot of ways, I think it's superior. Other than this, it's hard to comprehend. You're going to have trouble comprehending it. Your payroll is going to have trouble comprehending it. And, well, your recruits are going to have trouble comprehending it. And quite honestly, I think your guys are going to have trouble comprehending it, which is going to lead to a lot of, why didn't I get paid this? Or why did I, what? And, yeah, those arguments all come in.
Yeah, and then they're going to be mad when they're like a half hour short of a pay bump.
Yep.
Yeah. So we kind of do something. We do a sliding scale, or we don't do piece rate because we're union, so we can't. And their base wage is so high already that to then bump them up higher just doesn't really make a ton of sense. So we bump them up as they sell hours. So once they sell their minimum, which is 25, we bump them up like $5 an hour. And then once they hit 35, we bump them up even more.
Yeah.
And then if they sell 40, we bump them up. If they sell 40, I'll bump them all the way to, I think we bump them all the way to 75. Maybe we'll have to go to 90. But what I found is that my guys make so much money on the check
After
already.
they listen to this podcast, they're going to be like, "Hey, what's up with this?"
Yeah.
Well, we don't tell them about these podcasts.
Oh, gotcha.
But what we found is that, and I don't understand it at all, is that my guys make enough money on their check that they don't even care about the pay bump. They could care less.
Yeah.
They're like, I make enough money. And so it's really hard to incentivize them.
Yeah. The reality is, for piece rate of any type to work, your base rate has got to be, it's got to be uncomfortably low.
Right.
It has to be uncomfortable. It has to be low enough that it's going to starve the guys out you don't want around. It actually has to be. And I know that sounds harsh and cold, but it's one of those things. And one of the things I've learned in building systems at all, your systems need to be draconian so that you can be the nice guy. You got to make your systems ridiculously harsh. They have, I mean, they have to be straight up draconian harsh, because then you can come in and rescue guys from the system. You know, and it ends up being that hard wall that you can use to kind of negotiate with the guys. So like for us, in that, if a guy falls below 20 for 2 weeks, he gets a PIP, or performance intervention plan. He falls below for 3 weeks, he's out. No ifs, ands, or buts. He's out. Done. So what happens is, now when I come to that performance intervention plan, I'm like, hey, look, the system says that you're 2 weeks below 20. You know, let's say it's you, Jared. So it's like, hey, Jared, you're 2 weeks below 20. System says that next week, if you stay below 20, I'm gonna have to let you go. So we're gonna do a PIP, a performance intervention plan. And basically, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna talk to you and see if we can figure out why you're below. Are you cool with that? And I'm gonna get 1 or 2 reactions from you. I'm gonna get, screw you, it's everybody else's fault. My manager hates me, sends me to bad calls. We have nothing but bad calls. Blah 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 blah. It's always about the calls, you know, and passing off, not taking any responsibility at all. You're going to get either that reaction, or you're going to get the reaction of, please show me what I'm doing wrong. Okay, now that's a good guy, and you want to work with that guy. So now you're going to sit down with him, and you're going to look and figure out what he's doing wrong. Usually you're going to find things like he's giving crummy options. If he's giving
Mhm.
3 options, he's giving crummy options, right?
Mhm.
And well, okay, if he's giving crummy options, of course, your options actually have to be valid. The other day we had a guy that I had to address, and he offered a toilet flapper, a minor rebuild, and a major rebuild, and I'm just like, like, really? Well, if you deliver enough of those, you're going to fall below 20. I mean, for sure.
Yep.
It's not even you're going to. You're going to fall below 20. So now I have the opportunity to come in and rescue him. I'm going to look at his options. Are those options? Do they even make sense? Do they work at all? Or you'll get a guy who has his options. Yeah, he had 3 options, so he slipped through with the manager a few times. But you'll find like a toilet option, a water heater option, and a kitchen faucet. Well, that's not even 3 options. That's
Yeah.
we're not even in the same world right now.
Right.
So you're going to find things like that sometimes. You'll find things like they put discounts on every single option, or they put their discounts on at the same time as they built their options. Well, now you're literally throwing away any sales leverage that you have. So you
Right.
find those types of things. You'll find things like them failing to call in for manager discounts, right?
Yep.
So the last ditch effort that we have is okay, Mrs. Jones, how much were you hoping to spend on the plumbing? Right now, she's going to lie because the number that she really wants to spend on plumbing is 0.
0. Yep.
Right? So, by the way, statistics say that less than 1% of U.S. households, have a home repairs fund. However, 60% of U.S. households have either a boat or a vacation fund.
Right.
Dude.
So that they don't have the money argument that you hear from your guys. Yes, they do. It's just not in a home repairs fund because they didn't build a home repairs fund.
Yeah. Nobody wants to spend their boat fund on their plumbing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's for my
Right.
boat.
Yeah, highly important things here that we don't want to divert funds.
I can live in my boat, all right? I can live in my boat.
So basically, at that point, what we teach our guys to do is, okay, how much were you hoping to spend? Now they're going to give out a lie, and we all know it's a lie, right? They're just going to put out a number that they feel is reasonable-ish, right?
Uh-huh.
And this is a negotiating a tactic, is all it is, and it's wired deep inside the human anatomy to negotiate, and so they're going to throw out a negotiation number, and sadly, if you don't train your guys right, what you're going to get is we're just too far apart. There's no way. Your guy's going to tuck tail and run. At this point, what your guy needs to do is he needs to screw his heels in for a fight and actually deal with this properly. So, okay, you were hoping to spend that much. I don't know that I can get you to that, but here's what I'm going to do. I really want to get you taken care of, so I'm going to call my manager and I'm going to see how close to that I can get. I kid you not, back when I was in the truck, I used to go call the manager. Call the manager. Mind you, it was me, myself, and I.
Yep.
So I would hold up my phone and call the manager.
Yep.
In the truck.
Yep.
And then what we have is a series of manager discounts that our managers have, ranging all the way to our break-even number. And so the manager is going to give those series of discounts depending on 2 things. How big a discount it is depending on 2 things: how valuable the job is, or how busy we are, right?
Yep.
So if our schedule's slammed, manager's always gonna give a discount, but it might be like a 2.5%. I mean, it's like something, but but not necessarily great.
Right.
And then our manager can actually go all the way to what our break-even number is in that discount. And your discounts have to be valid. They have to actually be something. You can't just take money off. So we actually have a series of discounts that our techs can give. We have a series of discounts that our managers can give, which can add up to a total of our break-even. And that way we can get a customer taken care of. And I don't necessarily mind breaking even sometimes. I mean, if we're slow, if we're slow, my manager might give a discount all the way to break even, right?
Yeah.
Might totally do that.
Yeah, pay your bills at least.
Yeah, at least cover. Yeah, and that is a thing. It's coming out of the profit margin, not out of your bills. But
yeah, right. Yep. Yeah, at least you break even. You're not making money, but you're not losing money.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's how we do that.
And so at that point, like when you're got somebody pulled aside, and he wants to learn and he's eager to get better.
Yeah.
And he's gone through his 2-week whatever, and you're at the PIP and you're sitting him down. Do you are you gracious with that person and work with them a little longer, or because a week to catch on, like a week to fix their mistakes
I'll
is
be
pretty
perfectly
short.
honest. In the 3 years we've been doing this, I
Hmm.
have never had a guy not break 20 the following week.
Yeah, that's cool.
Sometimes it's like 21, but
Uh-huh.
that's a pass,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
right?
Yeah.
win-win.
Cool.
But I have yet to have a guy not break that 20 the following week. It's just, I guess it could happen. And now that I say that, we're going to have it happen. I'm going to be like, oh, well, Jared, there you
Hopefully
go.
not. Hopefully I didn't jinx you.
But yeah, I mean, we have yet to actually have a guy after a PIP fail to break 20. Sometimes it's just barely beyond, but just barely beyond at least is the right direction. And, and they're at least following through on the things that they need to follow through.
Yeah, cool. I like it. Well,
One of
thanks
these
for sharing all
days,
that.
one of these days when I sell my business, and why I say when I sell my business, because I don't think you can do this while you own a business. One of these days, and I've already got the outline written. I'm going to write a book called Fire Your Way to Success. There's been a failure way to success, but I'm writing Fire Your Way to Success. But and it really comes down. It's not actually firing. It's a matter of making a hard enough line that the guys don't want to cross it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Thanks for sharing all that.
Oh yeah.
You're like a wealth of knowledge.
Well.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I took notes, Bo. You should be proud of me right there. It's almost a half page.
You can write.
Just barely. Jared's trying to teach me, but it takes a
Oh,
while
yeah.
now.
One of these days we'll get him writing.
Yeah, I keep switching hands. I don't know. I just don't. One feels better than the other.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. That's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Right on.
Thanks, Bo. Man,
Hey,
we'll see you
See you
next
guys.
time.
Yeah, it was great. Anytime.
Hey guys, if you liked that episode and you want to see more content like that, I picked out a special episode just for you. All you got to do is click right here. Go ahead and do it. Just click right there.